Don't call it an EQ. Hi, welcome to the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Plugin Alliance and Brainworks' new plugin, TOMO Audiolabs LISA, which is based on a pretty rare and expensive piece of hardware, 6 bands of EQ, which have the capability of being dynamic with opto compression and expansion. Now, in this video, I'm not going to go into too much detail on the function of the buttons and the knobs, etc. There's an excellent walkthrough from Justin Coletti at Sonic Scoop on the Plugin Alliance YouTube channel. So if you want a more in-depth look at the actual plugin, I will link that below. But in this video, we're just going to listen to how it actually sounds and hopefully give you some inspiration on how you can use it in your tracks or on your masters. So let's jump in. So here we are in Studio One. I'm not going to go into too much detail, like I said in the intro, but I'm just going to quickly run through it because it's quite a daunting plugin, just so you roughly know where you are. So we have 6 channels. First thing you're going to notice is there's no visual reference. It's all going to be by ear, which I personally love, especially in mastering. So with the 6 channels, we have a low boost and a high boost, basically like a shelf. And we can choose the frequency, the gain, and we have compression on these boosts. In the middle, you have the 4 more detailed EQ channels, a low, mid, and high. You have gain. You can switch to boost or cut here. So you'll be able to boost or cut using this knob. Obviously, you can turn the EQ on or off. Here you have a Q, so you can go to shelf on the low and high and choose a Q, wide or narrow. You have the frequency you can choose here. And down here, you have the compression section where you can change the amount of compression. Or if you click this button, expansion, you can turn that on and off. You have a ratio of around about 3:1 with this turned off and around about 10:1 with this turned on. So kind of like a LA2A style compressor. Here you have an attack and release all in one button, which I think is really, really cool. Again, there's not too much to fiddle around with. The abbreviations, F for fast, S for slow, and M, I guess, for medium-ish. So you can kind of work that out for yourself. Here you have low cut, so that's really useful as well. Input and output. You have a master threshold for all of the compressors across, or expansion across all 6 channels. Down the bottom, you have the classic Brainworks Plugin Alliance extras. You can have the TMT here where you can choose random channel, choose your own channel, or you can have it switched to digital. Parameter links, mid-side, which is what we've actually got this in at the moment. Side channel link, mono maker, stereo width, headroom. This new thing here, TX Drive, is kind of an emulation of Transformer. So you can kind of basically add a bit of saturation by using it. Now, I love this. This is really nice. It's very subtle. And I hope going forward, we see this more on Plugin Alliance plugins. So it's a little bit different from the headroom. With the headroom, you can drive into the compressor or the EQ, etc. But with this, it adds a nice bit of very, very subtle saturation, which is really, really nice in mastering, but also in mixing. And finally, with this dry mute button up here, this is basically, I guess, the equivalent of a delta button, where when you press it, it gets rid of all the dry signal and it's only playing back to you what you're actually affecting in the signal, the compression that you're applying, that kind of thing. So that's a really useful function as well. And sorry, I just missed down here, we have the auto listen, which I find really useful in mastering EQs. And I wish that everything had that. I don't use it all the time, but I like the option of being able to turn it off and on. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to run through a whole load of different sources, and I'm going to show you what the Tomo can do on these sources. I will also include some presets to get you started if you like. You can use them, by all means, share them, do whatever you want with them, but they'll be downloadable and they will be linked below. So just starting off with Master, because this is predominantly a mastering EQ. I'm just going to play the track first. It's in bypass. And then I'll just run through quickly what I did, and you can have a listen to how it's affected. I do bear in mind that there's no auto gain on this at all, so I'm matching the gain as best as I possibly can. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but I will get it as close as I can so as not to fool you with the louder is better. So let's just have a quick listen to this master. That's a track by Lip called Sensory Overload. Absolutely amazing track that I was lucky enough to master. And so, like I said, this is in bypass at the moment, and I'm just going to drop it in and out, and then I'll explain what I did to get to how I've got the sound using this plugin. So just quickly running through how I have the plugin set up. I have the analog TMT switched on. It's in mid-side. I have the mono maker around about 80 Hertz, a little bit of stereo width. Everything else pretty much left alone here. In the middle of the signal, I have a low cut at about 20 Hertz. I've boosted the low end just a little bit, and also a bell boost on the low end as well. A little bit of compression here, as you can see. Nothing being touched there whatsoever, I don't think. Oh no, just a little bit of a cut actually, around about 200. That's probably muddy, a little bit of mud was in there. Again, very, very subtle. A little bit of a boost at around about 700 Hertz. That was an area that I felt just needed lifting a little bit. And also around about 5K. Little bit of compression. Actually, there's quite a bit of compression going on there. Yeah, so you can see there's quite a bit of compression going on actually in the mid of the signal, in the higher end of the frequency spectrum. So as I was saying, a little bit of a boost at 5K, and then just a little bit of a boost shelf at the top here. Generally, you can see I've gone for slow attack, fast release. And you can see that there. Just on the sides, really what I've just done, just to open the master up a little bit, I've just boosted the top end, bit of a shelf at 12K, and a boost medium Q at 5K as well. A little bit of compression going on there too. So just, if you can concentrate, maybe in headphones this is better. When I go into bypass, the mix to me, the master to me, kind of goes in on itself a little bit. And what I wanted to do with this, using it in mid and side, pretty standard move in mastering, is just give the bottom a bit of a lift, get rid of some of the mud, boost around about sort of, 5K kind of area, the golden area, give it a bit of high shelf, and then on the sides, just open things up a little bit. There's lots of reverb going on, so it was really nice to just stretch it open. So if you just concentrate on what happens when I bring the plug-in out of bypass, you can hear things open up. So let's just start with it in bypass and then just listen to it open up. And also with the compression, everything tightens up as well. It's really, really nice. Hear how the vocal springs out when you bring the plug in. So here we have another master. This is more of a kind of chill out track. Here again, I've used this EQ in a way that I would generally use an EQ in mastering. So I've gone for some subtle boosts in the low end, a little bit of a high pass there. Actually, no high pass at all. So a little bit of a boost in the low end and a little bit of a boost around about 14 there, 1.4K. Some clarity boosts around about 4, 5. And then a high shelf boost just to give it a bit more top end and air. And then using a mid-side technique here, similar to the last master, just to open things up a little bit. See, with the compression I've done in the low end here, which is a bit more than that last master, but the last master being a kind of house track, I didn't really want to compress the low end too much. But with this chill out track, you've got more room to work with because basically it's slower, I guess. and the bass guitar is more dominant here rather than the kick drum. So I could apply a lot more compression to the low end. And what it does is it just tightens everything up in a really nice, warm way. I don't want to say it a very analog-y way, but you know, I know what I mean from using analog hardware. Let's not go there. Let's not go down that route. So by adding a little bit of compression here, I have slow attack, fast release, tightened everything up nicely. And it also brings things forward with a little bit of compression in the mid-range. And it's just the combination of being able to have this really nice broad stroke EQ and also being able to compress and expand dynamically as well. I'm really starting to like this plugin a lot. The best way for me to visually describe how I feel this EQ, dynamic EQ and compression does to a master when you've got lots of frequencies going on right across the spectrum is in bypass, my master is shaped like that. And then when I take it out of bypass, it opens up like that. And I love that. It's a really big thing in music nowadays to have it nice and wide, but you have to be very, very careful with phasing issues and stuff. I'm not hearing any phasing issues at all. For me, it opens it up in a really nice, natural, warm, creamy, like hug me way. So let's just drop it in and out of bypass so you can just hear it opening and closing up. Let's start in bypass. You can really hear it on the strings. So here we're going to use it on an acoustic guitar. Now, if you listen to the plugin in bypass, there's an area which is quite muddy in there, which kind of sounds a bit boxy. And what I've done with the Lisa here is I've used that to clear things up, but also to really sharpen the top end. But it still has some body and it's tightened up as well using the compression. What I found when I used it on instruments like acoustic guitars and instruments that are generally quite dynamic was it had... There's a plugin called Gullfoss. I don't know if you're familiar with it. If you're not, then check it out. It's a really, really cool plugin. And using AI, it kind of balances things out for you. I don't really know what's going on underneath the hood on that plugin. I'm not even going to begin to try and explain it, but it's quite incredible. Very, very useful plugin. But what I feel like with this plugin is it's got a similar sound to what Gullfoss will do with the dynamic signal, but I have more control over it. I can get right in there and start fiddling around with things. So on this particular example, it really reminded me of Gullfoss. Also bear in mind that if this was an acoustic guitar that was just going to be on its own and not sit in a track, I probably would have left a little bit more of the mud and a little bit more of the low end in there. But because this was how I had the acoustic guitar mixed in a track, I've got rid of that mud completely, and it's kind of, I've taken away some of the low end that you have naturally on an acoustic guitar from the box of the actual guitar, obviously. Just tightens everything up and just sounds really clean and has some really nice clarity in there by using a combination of the so you actually see that I've cut the low end on this, taken some mud out quite a lot in fact, and then just boosted the areas on an acoustic guitar which give it that kind of clarity. And I wouldn't always do this on an acoustic guitar, but it sounded good in the track. I've pushed the top end to give it some air so you can hear the pick hitting the strings. So here we are with it on a drum bus. Now, in particular, I found that the Lisa excelled on drum buses, especially on live drum buses. What I've done with this is using a combination of the compression. So you can see there's quite a lot of compression there, and you'll hear this in a minute. And what it's done is it's really livened everything up. It's given the drum sound a lot more of, I've brought the room up, and you can hear that on the snares. So if you focus on the snares, you can hear the tail of the snare a lot more. And it's done it in a very, very natural way. But also, I have the low end on this EQ is just amazing. And what's nice is you can lift the bottom end with this boost area, but then focus in using the Q, and you're using a bell EQ on particular parts of the drum kit. And what it does is it's really added some beef to the kick drum. Really, really nice. So try and focus on what's happening with the kick drum, and using a lot of compression, short, medium, attack, release. I've brought up the sound of the room with the drums and the hats, kind of brought up the overheads and stuff like that. So let's listen to it in bypass first. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that gain down a little bit. That's better. Okay, let's start this again. In bypass, and then listen to the room come up and everything just have its place a lot more, but still sound nicely tight and glued together. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the recording of the drums here at all, but it was quite a dead room. And what this has done is just, the track was a 70s sounding kind of track. So we didn't want it completely dead. We wanted some life injected into it a little bit. So using this EQ and compression, bringing the room up a little bit, I rescued what was originally quite a dead sounding drum kit. I think there was tea towels on the snares, probably a cushion inside the kick drum. So it sounds quite dead, but what this has done is it's brought some life back into it. So here we have it on a loop that I sampled off an old early 70s funk record. Obviously, I don't have the individual parts, so I wasn't able to really have any control over the individual drum sounds. What this EQ has helped me do is, again, open things up and add a little bit of clarity, add a little bit of sizzle in the top end, and just, I guess, make an old funk beat just sound a little bit more modern. Start with it in bypass. Focus especially on the snare drums. With the compression, it just tightens the snare drum up really, really nice and glues it in a lot more. So here I've used it on some congas, and it doesn't really, it looks like it's actually doing a lot of work, but it's not really massively noticeable. But what it's done is it's really tightened the congas up and got rid of the kind of little bit of mud that you get quite often on congas around about 200, 210 hertz, and evened things out and given it that kind of almost overdriven, pumpy, saturated kind of sound to congas, which I personally absolutely love and sound really, really good in kind of 70s style disco tracks, new disco stuff, hip hop. where it almost sounds a little bit over compressed, but there is a lot of compression going on. But to me, it just sounds really, really natural and really nice. And it's also brought up the room. Again, it's opened it up. There's quite a distracting and annoying boxy, nasally frequency going on, which I've got rid of, you can see just here, by activating the cut button rather than the boost button. And you can hear it there, kind of sound. Quite common on congas, on the lower conga. Now it just sounds more natural, just sounds more glued, more natural, and evened out a little bit more. And that sort of nasally, annoying sound has gone. Now again, here with a kind of funk guitar, Stratocaster, chic style. It's quite overdriven, this actually. It's not totally clean chic style. Used a little bit of the TX drive down here and adjusted the headroom. But again, it has that similar kind of muddy area, which is kind of a thing that you do tend to get in a Stratocaster, or that kind of single coil guitar if you plug it straight into a desk. So as you can see, again, I've cleaned that up here, and it's kind of a nasally, boxy sound. And again, there's a lot of work going on here. When I actually play it, you'll see there's a lot of compression work, and you can see there's some quite heavy cuts and boosts here, but it doesn't really sound like there's a lot going on, which again, so it sounds very, very natural, and that's why I'm liking this EQ more and more. Let's just have a listen in bypass first. Listen for that nasally kind of sound in the guitar. So it's round about here. I'll just use the auto listen. Yeah, that's on. That's the area. That's the area that I've used to clean up just here. A real even and natural way of just leveling things out. So here we have it on a female vocal.
I'm gonna make it this time. I'm gonna make it this time.
This was not a particularly clean recording, in my opinion. It was a bit muffly, wasn't really recorded in a particularly great room, but this EQ really, really cleaned things up.
I'm gonna make it this time. I'm gonna make it this time. I'm gonna make it this time.
There's like this quite annoying kind of ringy kind of sound going on. And also there was a lot of mud that I cleaned up, you can see here. So if you just listen, it's a bit difficult to listen, to really, really hear what I've done, but just listen how much cleaner it sounds. Boosting around about 5K for clarity, putting some air in the top with the shelf here, boosting around about 15, 1.6, 1.5, 1500, 1600. And like I said, just cleaning the mud up down the bottom here.
I'm gonna make it this time.
That's in bypass.
I'm gonna make it this time. I'm gonna make it this time. I'm gonna make it this time.
See how much cleaner it sounds, but it still sounds natural, and it doesn't sound like it's been over-compressed or over-EQ'd.
I'm gonna make it this time. 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 I'm gonna make it this time.
And then finally, just to give you an example of it being used in a mono instance, I have a 909 kick here, opened up the plugin, it automatically opened up as a mono instance, and it looks great in mono. I love the way it looks. Oh, just want to point this out, by the way. Didn't point this out earlier on. This LED thing here that apparently is on the actual hardware. Love it. Brilliant. Awesome. Can play around, something to fiddle around with. Anyway, sorry, getting back to the mono instance of Lisa. Here we have it on a 909 kick. What I've done here is just really rounded things off. I have taken that kind of click sound off the kick drum because in the mix it wasn't really working for me. But you'll just hear that it's nicely rounded off, but in a nice natural way, and it just sounds more open. And it's still a big kick. Nice bottom end, nice round, warm bottom end, but it just sounds more in place. Now, because I'm playing it in solo and not playing it in the mix, it's going to be a bit difficult to hear what I'm explaining here, but you'll just hear it. Just for me, it just sounds like a nicer kick and a more controllable kick. So let's play it in bypass first. You'll hear a classic 909 sound. If you can hear, it almost takes the mono kick and kind of opens it up, and it's like I've put quite a lot of compression on 3, 6, and 7, which is kind of where the click happens on a 909. So it's kind of making space. You've got this nice big beefy kick drum, but there's space still to be built around. I don't really know if that makes sense. It makes sense to me in my head. I can't always get it out, what I'm thinking and what I can actually hear in my head. But for me, I just really like the way that this makes a 909 kick sound in this particular instance. And you can have this preset. So there you have it, the TOMO Audiolabs Lisa from Plugin Alliance and Brainworks. Now, I just want to point out that Plugin Alliance did actually send me this plugin for free at the beta stage. So I've been using it for about a month now, but I am in no way affiliated or sponsored by them. And my opinion is my opinion, and I don't have to run anything by them before I publish. Now, am I a fan? Yes, absolutely. I am a fan. And I've been using it on a ton of masters in the last month and loads of mixes. It's a real beast to tame, and you do need to tame it. It's not a plugin that you would reach for on every master or every mix or every track or every mix bus. You really need to learn its functions. You really need to learn exactly what it does to know when to use it. It can fall apart very, very quickly, your mixes, your masters, if you just start pushing buttons, twisting knobs. It's not one of those just jump in and twist knobs, push buttons. You have to really, really learn it, like I said. And once you learn it, you'll be in situations where you will hear what Lisa can do to your master or what Lisa can do to your mix buses or your individual tracks, and you'll know when to reach for it. I love the GUI. I love the new TX drive function that's on there, and I hope to see that on more Plugin Alliance Brainworks plugins going forward. And I love that it has its own individual sound signature. I do like that in plugins, and that was something that I liked about analog equipment, is they had their own signature, they had their own sound, and it does imprint something. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes you want complete clean, you want complete transparency, but it does imprint a sound, and you can just use it. You can use a TX drive, for instance, not touch anything, but just use that, or just use the headroom, just use the stereo width mono maker, the TMT on it. This is all stuff that's on all Plugin Alliance plugins, but this one in particular does have a real sound signature to it. And for that reason, it's definitely a plugin that I'm going to be using in the future, 100%. Demo it. Do a 14-day demo. Honestly, you really should try it out. But just be careful with it. Like I said, it can fall apart very, very quickly. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more mixing and mastering tutorials and reviews. This is the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Until next time.